All right, so today I have the pleasure of being joined by Towson's men's basketball coach, Pat Skerry. Pat has been a collegiate coach now for 34 years. He spent time at Tufts as a graduate assistant after playing college basketball there, then moved on. It was a graduate assistant at Stonehill, I believe, at one point, Rhode Island, Northeastern, Charleston. Then you found your way, obviously, to Towson, where you're now the head coach. You did play college basketball at Tufts. You were the head coach at Curry as well at one point. So you have two positions you've been as a head coach at Curry and at Towson. It's an absolute honor to have you as a guest today, Pat. I've watched you coach against Northeastern many of times over the years. My brother Paul and I always circle the date of the calendar when you're visiting Boston. Unfortunately, this year you won't be playing at Northeastern, but maybe I'll make a road game happen this year and see you on the road. But thank you so much, Pat. How are you doing today?
I appreciate you having me on, and I love getting back to Boston. I don't always love having to play Northeastern. That is certainly never an easy game. So I wish we could go back to Boston, but not have to play the game.
I completely hear you. I mean, you got obviously a great team, a team that plays very hard, and no matter what year it's been, obviously I know when you first started, Towson was 1-31 in the first season, and you really grew the program to something that was very special. And every single year that I see you guys play, you guys always play hard. You play with a lot of energy, play tough defense. Guys are fighting for loose balls. That's why I do love watching your team play. So to be able to have you on today truly is an honor. So thank you for your time, Pat. We'll start out with my first question. I know I was reading when I was doing some research on you. You were a big hockey player growing up. You did like basketball, but you were into hockey. When did your passion for basketball begin, and when did it really take over against the game of hockey?
Yeah, hockey is such a high level sport up in the Boston area. So I grew up playing hockey. Played with a couple of NHL players, the Sacco brothers, the Bates family. So I think I found two things. One, I found out after a while that it wasn't me in hockey; it was really playing with good players. And then my when I was young, my parents got divorced, and I just remember finding my solace on the basketball court, and that's kind of where I just kind of fell in love with the game. It kind of made the switch. I think it was in like sixth, seventh grade to basketball full time.
Mhm. And it was the right decision you made, obviously. You made a collegiate career out of it as a player and then now as a
Uh,
coach as well. So it ended up being a great decision. And one question I have about that is obviously you did play college basketball right down the street at Tufts. What was that experience like going right down the street from where you grew up in Medford, Mass, and playing college hoops?
yeah, it was great. One, I got to play for an excellent coach and an even better person in Bob Sheldon, who I think was for 34 years, was the head coach at Tufts and just did an incredible job. And then hired me. So, just one of the elite humans I've ever been fortunate to come in contact with. And, my mom worked in the grad school at Tufts. So, like I said, my parents are divorced. And um, I remember my dad telling me, like a lot of guys, I wanted to maybe go to prep school, a couple Division II schools looking at me. But my dad was smart enough to tell me I could go to any school I want. I could also pay my own way to go to any school I want. Or if I got into Tufts, which I had a decent chance to do, he goes, you can go tuition free. So I quickly wised up, and fortunate that I got to go there. I think obviously it was a competitive environment, and I think learned how to interact with people from all walks of life. So really enjoyed my time there.
Mhm. And you made a great career out of it as a player. I mean, you were number one all time in career assists with 634 in program history, fifth all time in steals. So obviously you were a very good playmaker and then obviously great defensively. Were there any players you modeled your game after when you were playing?
Well, yeah, I assists and steals because I couldn't shoot. You know what I mean? I had good players. I played with good players. They put the ball in the basket so I could get some assists. But back then, obviously, just being a big Celtics fan, still am to this day. But all Boston
Mhm.
sports teams. Probably the NBA guy I liked the most, kind of around that time, would have been John Stockton. One of the all-time great assist guy. But I enjoyed playing for Coach Sheldon, and and having a good experience as a student athlete. I'm grateful for that.
Mhm. And you were a two-time captain as well. So obviously Sheldon and your teammates thought very high of you as a leader. You were a two-time captain there at Tufts. How much of an honor was it to be, elected as a two-time captain?
Yeah, I think back now, I certainly think anytime you're in any leadership position, I think you more think back of how you could have done it better. I certainly, both in my coaching and in my captain days, probably made a ton of mistakes. Well, I know I made a ton of mistakes, so I probably think back of I wish I did some of those things a lot better. But it's always nice to be recognized by your peers or the guys you're playing for. I don't know if they made a good choice and elected me captain, but I'm thankful for it.
I think it was a great one. And obviously, you look at your career, you've had a lot of awards. You're a two-time CAA Coach of the Year. You were the Skip Prosser Award winner as well back in 2023. So obviously, there are a lot of people that think very highly of you as a leader. And obviously, your team has had a lot of great years, record-wise as well, which obviously shows you're not only a great leader of getting, wins and losses, obviously a great leader of young men, obviously getting those guys to gel together and then obviously to make them, men, right? At the end of the day, you're taking these freshmen and sophomores and juniors in college and setting them up for the real world. And you've obviously done that very well at Towson. And I do have some questions about Towson in background, but I feel like it's a good segue to talking about Nick Timberlake. I know you were with him this afternoon talking about young men that have played for you that are now playing professionally, that are out there in the real world. What do you think of Nick Timberlake's career when you look back at his time at Towson?
I mean, I love the kid. Love the family. Um, he is like you talk about a guy that maybe was overlooked and just consistently worked and competed with an edge. Just what you'd expect from a Bostonian. And made himself into a two-time first team all league guy and a chance to play start at Kansas and then is playing professionally. So I think the world of Nick and really what you want, type of guys I want here that they got an edge. They work with something to prove. And really, he was one of the key guys on our first championship team. So he's one of my all-time favorites. The fact that he's from Boston certainly never hurt. And he's got like I said, really good parents. So he was an easy guy to coach.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think that the main thing that stands out when I watch him play, and like I said, I've seen you probably coach and seen Towson play at Northeastern, I'd say 5 or 6 times, maybe 7 times. And in those games over the years, I remember when he was just a freshman or a sophomore, there was a big crowd there to see him play. And then by his junior year, senior year, playing against Northeastern, and obviously his scoring potential got better and better each year. Every time that Towson scored a bucket, it was like it was a home game for you guys with everyone yelling for him. And you had another local guy as well, and Ja'Kai Doughton on that team as well
Sure.
at one point. So you obviously did recruit, on the East Coast and hit some of the local towns right around Medford, obviously getting, those two guys. How important is it for you to, when you are recruiting, to hit some of the local talent here in the Northeast?
Yeah, we certainly try to. I mean, the New England prep schools have incredible basketball, great coaches, and then I think I still have a lot of friends in the grassroots of New England. But you look at like BABC and Rivals, Expressions. We have a freshman from Expressions, Jalen Williams Crawford, who's going to be excellent player for us. Middlesex Magic, what they've done up there. I mean, so there are some high level AAU programs. I would actually argue that obviously other than maybe where we're at here in the DMV, that's as good as anywhere in the country up in New England. So we always try to get guys out of there. Sometimes the problem is every other school in the country tries to get guys out of there too.
It can be tough, obviously, competing with them, but you obviously always put out a good product on the court. As I said, every year you have the right guys, the guys that gel together, that play the right way, guys that are two-way players as well, that, aren't just there to try to score. You have guys that want to play defense, that are willing to, get dirty, dive on the floor for a loose ball. I do want to rewind now, and I know you did mention Bob Sheldon as well, a guy that obviously was a mentor to you, and obviously you played for him, and then you did work for him as a graduate assistant. What were some lessons that you learned from him that you kind of took away from your time there when you took your next step of your career as an assistant at Northeastern?
Yeah, I think Bob was a really good teammate. So hopefully I've been a guy that can work well with administrators and other coaches. And I thought Bob's real strength too was giving players confidence, in developing relationships with them outside of just the games. That's why, like I said, he was a really good coach that won a lot of games, but an even better human being.
hmm Absolutely. And that's what you want, especially as a head coach. You want a guy that can relate to the players. It's not always just X's and O's, being able to relate to them, to create that relationship with them so that when times do get tough, you can be a little bit harder on them than you could be if if you don't have a great relationship with the player. It's tough to critique them. But when you build that relationship and that trust, it's easier because you guys both know, okay, we're just trying to get the team better and do whatever is best for the team. And Sheldon obviously had a great career at Tufts. I think he recently retired, right? Back in was it
Yeah.
2020? 2020 and had
He
a lot of
stepped down
wins.
a couple of years ago. It's a great career, and then Brandon Linton, who they hired, is doing a phenomenal job up there. So I still follow Tufts basketball, Tufts athletics. They're having unbelievable success across the board. We got a new great AD, Ryan Pisari from Rutgers. So looking forward to continued jumbo greatness.
Yeah, absolutely. They made the tournament as well in college baseball, if I remember correctly. So, really cool that they're starting to really grow in every sports program. And like you said, with the new AD, it's a new beginning. I know their AD did step away in the last year or so, but after your time there, obviously you did take some time to be an assistant, and then you made a jump and you were the head coach at Curry College at 26 years old, which I'm 25. I couldn't imagine being a college basketball coach at 26. Comes with a lot of pressure, obviously, and a lot of responsibilities. What did you learn in your time at Curry that you used to propel you in your next step? Like I said, you're an assistant at Northeastern after that, and then all the way down the line, finding your time at Pitt before becoming a head coach. What did you learn at Curry that really helped you with the rest of your career?
Well, look, and I'm forever grateful for the opportunity at Curry. Oh, I had an awesome AD that hired me, Pam Samuelson, who had a decorated career as a college administrator. And Ken Quigley, the president of Curry, did a remarkable job over the years of building that school up. So for me, it was like 2 great years, almost having my own laboratory. And I certainly probably made a lot more mistakes than correct decisions, but hopefully I learned a lot of those. I loved it. Still have relationships with a handful of the guys I got to coach there. A lot of them come to the games up at Northeastern, and Adam Nelson was an assistant who runs a great website with hoopdirt.com, and just a really good guy. So I have fond memories, and most importantly, I met my wife there. She worked in admissions at the time, and as much as I enjoyed the opportunity to coach there, the fact that I got to meet my wife there was obviously the best thing about Curry. But yeah, Pam Samuelson took a chance on a guy that was 25, 26 years old who didn't really know his ass from his elbow. So I'm forever grateful for that.
Mhm. And obviously, it was a great decision for Curry. You brought some success in the 2 years you were there, and then right away, right after those 2 years were up, you made that step to Northeastern, and obviously it worked out for your career and obviously family-wise as well, meeting your wife. Now you're forever indebted to Curry College, right? When you look back, but at 26 years old, was there a lot of pressure on you? Obviously, I feel like when you're the second youngest head coach in the country, I feel like that itself just builds pressure and puts that on you. But then when you add in as well, this is your first stop as a head coach. I'm sure it's even more pressure than I could imagine. How much pressure was on you to try to perform and obviously have success? So then you could take that next step of your career.
Yeah, you know what? You know what you don't know. You just try to attack it, and be organized and work at it. I think I was lucky to have a great athletic director to maybe guide me through some situations. But I think I think back to all my years of coaching. You very frequently reflect on experiences, and a lot of times the assistant coaches you've worked with or worked for you, head coaches you've worked for, ADs you've worked with and for. Like I think you learn things from all of them. I certainly have taken stuff from every guy I've worked with or for. And most of the time, I've taken positive stuff from them, like how they handle situations or strengths they've had. And you really, the longer you do it, you admire the talents of the people you worked with and for. and I think I try to hopefully continue to learn and do a better job so that you can help those people that have talent in their career, and then they can continue to help you.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you never know what the future of those guys holds, right? Down the line, where maybe they'll be back on your staff one day, in the event they're looking for a job, and you create that relationship with them and then stay in touch with them. And
Well,
obviously,
we've had, yeah, I think back to my first team here and my first staff. We were 1-31, but what a great staff I had. Luke Murray. I mean, like, who I remain friends with, who is, I mean, he's going to do an unbelievable job at Boston College, and just a wizard. Dwayne Simpkins on that staff, who's won the Patriot League at American, and uh, Kenny Johnson on that staff, who's at Indiana, and Kevin Clark and Mike Sweats, who's I think the best operations guy in the country. So you can't. I've had great strength coaches, Adam Fletcher, Pat O'Connell, who's still with me. You can't have any success unless you have really good players and really good coaches and staff around you. And I've been fortunate. I've had really good players and I've had excellent staff.
mhm. And that's a testament to the culture you've built. You've gotten the right guys, the right players, the right coaching staff, the right strength and conditioning staff members. That way, everyone's kind of gluing and gelling together. And that's a testament to the winning
We've
culture
tried to
you've
fool
built.
them. We've tried to fool a lot of them. Like we fooled a lot of players and certainly fooled more staff. So I'm more appreciative that those guys have come to help us out.
Mhm. And I'm sure it's great seeing a lot of those guys, branch out in their careers, right? You mentioned one, Luke Murray, and I actually work at BC and I'm a two-time BC grad, so I'm excited to see what Luke Murray will bring to the BC program. But I'm sure it's great for you to see guys, branch out and see where their careers end up down the line. In the case of Luke Murray, when you had him as an assistant, what made him different and stand out to you when he was with you at Towson?
Yeah, look, I want to see BC do great. My dad passed away a couple months ago, and he's a BC Law guy, so always been a big Eagles fan. One, his intelligence and his appetite to work, to learn, to get better. Just an incredibly smart guy who really loves really loves basketball, all aspects of it. So I'm an admirer of his development. Certainly thankful that he came here and he helped us he brought in the best player we ever had. Um, so I'm looking forward to him doing great things. And he's helped me a lot over the years with some of the stuff him and uh, Danny Hurley and the rest of the UConn staff, I think a lot of us have been playing checkers and they're playing an advanced game of chess. So just idea sharing and seeing some film and stuff from him has been incredibly helpful, and I'm appreciative of that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great that you've stayed in touch with him and obviously can bounce ideas off each other. And he's recruiting similar guys you probably are, and maybe he might catch a game from the Middlesex Magic, for example, that you might not be able to get to, or have somebody there to see, and maybe give you some insight on some guys that stood out to him. So that's cool that you stayed in touch with them. And I know you said as well you worked with a lot of coaches over the years, especially some that you served as an assistant for. One being Jamie Dixon, a guy that's had a long career in college basketball. You were part of a staff at Pittsburgh that was a top 5 team in the country, and you were an integral part of them being one of the best recruited teams in the country as well. What strategies did you use in I think it was your lone season at Pittsburgh, to bring success as a recruiter and then obviously as an assistant coach as well?
Yeah, I owe a lot to Jamie Dixon in Pittsburgh. We had a really good staff. Brandon Knight, who's a terrific coach. Pat Sandel, who's out on the West Coast, really good coach. Brian Regan, who is assistant AD at Pittsburgh. Now these guys were just true professionals. So I think for me it was more what Pitt did for me than I did for Pitt. The thing was wired at that time, and I think Jamie Dixon is as underrated a collegiate basketball coach in the last 25 years maybe there's ever been. I mean, his ability to win at TCU and Pittsburgh and where those jobs really stack up in those leagues is phenomenal. What I took in a 1 year from him was just how structured he was the routine of all the practices and the meetings and the workouts. I just thought he was a machine. Obviously, I still talk to him frequently. And, I think it's safe to say without him hiring me, which I also owe a lot to Tommy Herrion, who I worked for at Charleston, who was at Pitt. He really helped push that hiring. Without those relationships, I don't ever get this opportunity.
Mhm. And you've built those relationships over the years, which it's really important, especially when you're working as a coach. Like I said, you never know where you'll end up and the people that are around you. So forming those relationships and staying in touch is obviously something that's, really important. And obviously a lot of people are willing to lend a hand to you because you've been able to do the same for them, which is great. And now I'd like to transition to talk about your time at Towson. You stepped in, and in 2011 and 2012, I think Towson, the year before you stepped in, they were 4-26, 0-18 in the CAA. Year one for you at Towson, you were 1-31. I think it was like 1-17 in the CAA. And then you turned it into being a consistently successful program around, right at the top of the CAA over the last 15 years. What was your vision and plan for turning around the program and turning them into a legitimate, successful team year in and year out in the CAA?
Yeah, I mean, look, at first and foremost, I've really benefited from good players, really good staff, and then I've worked for awesome people, presidents, athletic directors, and the two I work for now, President Ginsburg and then my AD Steve Eigenbrot, are really next level. Like, if you told me our president was the president of Harvard or Steve Eigenbrot was the athletic director at Alabama, they would knock it out the park. So I've been fortunate for the people I've worked for. We've really benefited from just the institution, the growth of our academics. We've had $1 billion of renovation in the last decade at Towson. So a lot of it we benefited from timing. I don't think I knew what the heck I was getting into at the time. To be perfectly honest, I was 41 years old and my dream was to be a Division I head coach. And I would have taken a car going down the street if it was a Division I job. I just wanted the opportunity. And Mike Waddell and Dr. Corrett, who was our president at the time, offered me the job here. And I would have bike pedaled here from Pittsburgh. And then I get in here and we screw the whole thing up the first year and lose 31 games and maybe have the worst team in the history of college basketball. So I'm just thankful that everybody stuck with me and I had good staff and then we were able to kind of find some players and have some success. But you're so caught up right now and like I'm hoping we can have a good team again. We got a lot of work to do, but at some point, I guess you step back and enjoy. But I've really enjoyed serving Towson and hope I can continue to do that.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you look at your career, there's a lot that you can reflect upon to be proud of in your time at Towson. Obviously, it's still going, you're still at Towson, but when you look back at a program you stepped in, I think it was like 15 or 20 years straight of losing seasons. And you stepped in, obviously, year one, that was a building year. And then year two, right away, within 2 or 3 years, you guys were competitive. You were coach of the year within that first couple of years. You won a CAA title in the regular season in the first few years as well in your time there at Towson. Like, you have a lot to be proud of in your time there. And overall in your career, you already got 254 wins at Towson, a 530 win percentage. Like, those are legitimate big time numbers that you can reflect upon and be like, wow, I made a great mark on this program, especially a program that was struggling before you stepped in. And when you did have that first winning season in year two, how gratifying was that for you? And then also, Towson and the fan base.
Yeah, I think it was really gratifying. I think one, like, so we made a lot more of a commitment. A lot of times when a program doesn't have the success everyone wants, it's not just the coach or the coach at all. It's the infrastructure. So certainly our infrastructure has improved, but our second year was neat because we were banned from uh, playing in the postseason of the CAA and any other tournament, and we were able to set a record in the last game of the old Towson Center. An NCAA record. I still remember Luke Murray's with 4 games ago came to me and said, if we win these last four, we set a record. We didn't even know. We were just when you lose 31 games, you're just consumed with trying to get better. But we had we had a unicorn, a guy by the name of Jarrell Benjamin, who I still believe is in my 14, 15 years in the CAA is the most impactful player. A guy that could take a team from 1-31 to 18 to 25 wins, back-to-back CAA Player of the Year is those guys don't. You talk about we hit a lottery ticket with that guy. There's never been a good coach without a Hall of Fame player. Okay, so like it starts with good players, and that guy was the unicorn.
Hmm. Absolutely. And he obviously made his mark on the program just like you did. And like I mentioned, it was that 15, 16-year window where they didn't have a losing season. So getting to that winning season, being 18-13 overall, 13-5 in CAA, I'm sure there was a lot to be proud of. And then you guys kept building, right? And now the last 10 years after that, right? You guys have been successful and competitive in just about each and every year, which that's the hard thing in college basketball, especially with the way things have changed. It's tough to keep a program together, right? Year in and year out, you see a lot of guys entering the portal, so it's tough to build a culture. But you were able to do that, and you were able to do that at a place that, like I said, was struggling for 15 years to really put out a winning product. So you have a lot to be proud of there, in that turnaround. And like you mentioned, that was the largest single season turnaround in college basketball history. Like that's big time. So a lot to be proud of there. And now when I look
Thank
at
you.
it, absolutely. And now I look at the current day, 4 of the last 5 years, you have had seasons with 20 or more wins. And all 5 of those years, you've had a win percentage of 555 or better. How have you navigated through the transfer portal era to remain competitive despite, the ever-changing landscape of college athletics?
Yeah, certainly we haven't figured it out. We're trying. I mean, this is a year-to-year deal. I mean, look at you paid to win games, but the best part of the job are the relationships that you're afforded the opportunity to make. So hopefully we'll be able to have a positive impact on some guys and get them better and help them realize their goals and dreams. So some good fortune and like I said, good players. It's not like you're in this mindset. Oh, hey, we got a half dozen guys back, but we got a lot of new guys and some young guys. Like we start up next week, 8 weeks of workouts, and we got to do that at a high level. So I don't know. I mean, habits. I guess that's a phrase that guys get tired of hearing. We try to form good habits. If we have good habits, then we've got the opportunity to say these are the standards. That's the buzzword, right?
Mhm.
And if you have that, then you get opportunities to compete for championships. The goal right now is like the old saying, winter will ask at some point next year, winter will ask, what did we do all summer? So we better knock it out the park this summer.
Mhm. Absolutely, right? They say, the winter time is when you kind of create, people always say you work hard in the gym in the winter. So then, like you said, summertime, you look back and all the work was put in, you're ready to play, set yourself up for success. So I like that phrase a lot for me. I'm going to use that. But when you look at obviously the way things have gone in college athletics, to be able to have 2 conference regular season titles in the last 5 years in 2022 and 2025 is really impressive because, like you already noted, it's the transfer portal era is not easy, right? You're losing guys. Every team in the country is losing guys year in and year out. So it's hard to really create that chemistry and the bond, with all of your players, since some guys might only be at your program for 1 year on a grad transfer year. And when you look at the guys you've built relationships with, and from a fan's perspective, right? I'm sitting in the stands, and I remember this year against Northeastern, a game where you guys were down 14-2 to start, and then you went on, I think it was like a 40 to 18 run to end the first half. There was one moment, and I think it was at the end of the first half, there was maybe a tough shot that one of your players took, and I think maybe you wanted them to maybe take a better look. And I remember you got a little bit upset with him about the shot, and you came over to the side, you talked to him for a second, and then he hugged you. And I've never seen a coach in college basketball or any sport for that matter be able to come down harder on a player, and then the player hugs him right afterwards. And that just shows that relationship that you've built with the guys. How do you build a relationship with your players where you can be obviously supportive at times when times are great, and then also critical of them when times are tough or when there's a play that you'd like for them to change?
Yeah, every guy's different, right? Always trying to push the right buttons. I hopefully, you try to be authentic. And then I think if you and your staff, if the guys know that you're going to put the time in with them and care about them, that that's that we're all can stay connected. But like these things are, you know, it's definitely not ice cream and cupcakes every day. You wish it was, but it's not. And that was a bad play at the end of the half. I appreciate you bringing that up. So we gotta coach them better, right? Coach Dixon used to say, "Telling isn't teaching." So we obviously we didn't train him well enough at that point. And I probably should have been probably should have been more frustrated at myself that he did that, and he probably should have been hugging me to tell me to relax.
I mean, it was a really cool moment though. Like I said, I've watched college basketball, college sports. I've played a lot of sports in my life, and I've never seen a coach be able to be critical of a player like that, and then the player hug them right afterwards and bring it in. Like that just shows the bond you've created with your players. I think that's really special, and that leads to my next question. What are some team values? I know you obviously talk about habits and obviously showing up every day and you're putting in the work in the off season. So then when the season does come around, you guys are ready. But what are some team values you preach to your team?
Yeah, one, be on time. Two, don't act like a jackass. Like if we can handle those first two, we're usually in pretty good shape. But I mean, a couple of things we harp on these guys is, so you got to honor the process. We've got to just get better that day. They'll hear a lot from us, you know, because guys have these things, but we can have results or we can have excuses, but we certainly can't have both. So to me, it's always about can we get guys to work, have those good habits, really work so that they develop confidence, like real confidence, because they've tell our guys, "I'll trust your work," and if the guys put the work in, I want them to, especially on offense, play with great confidence. The other piece is you've got to develop some toughness, both mentally and physically. Sometimes the mental piece is harder to successfully get guys to where they're capable of getting to. But if you have some toughness to you, and a competitive spirit, I think it can allow you to hang in there and hopefully steal some games, or certainly be in the position to win some games.
Mhm. And your guys play with that energy, right? It's an intense energy where, like you said, there's that get the
Most
ball. The
most
ball's
of the
good.
time, I hope. Not never enough. Most of the time, I hope though.
But I've always admired you as a coach, truly. Like I grew up a Northeastern fan. I had four siblings go to Northeastern, so I've always admired their program. I love watching Bill Cohen coach as well. And over the years, being able to watch you coach is something I've always enjoyed watching. Like I said, I've always circled the Towson dates on the calendar. My brother Paul and I are huge fans of yours. And you bring an intensity to the court, right? Like obviously, like you said, you bring that competitive nature. Where does your fire and energy and passion for the game come from?
Yeah, just I tried to work like that as a player, play with an edge. I mean, if someone watches us play, like I know that every team can beat us. I hope that when they play against us, they know they got to play close to 40 minutes to beat us. And I just say my dad was a self-starter, a worker. I think he instilled some toughness and competitiveness in us, me and my two brothers. So hopefully that carries over. But that like, there's a lot of things you want your team to do, but it really bothers, I think, any coach when you don't feel like your team is competing to the level that they're capable of.
Mhm. Completely understand you there. And obviously you get the most out of your players looking at your win and loss record over the years. You've been consistently consistent at, being competitive in the conference. And it's not an easy conference. The CAA each and
Oh
every
man,
year,
no, this
each and
is
every
as
year
good
it's
a
close.
yeah, it's as good a mid-major league as you find. I mean, you're up in Boston. Billy Cohen's the all-time winningest coach, and Hofstra's had great teams, a lot of coaches with Claxton and Mihalik, and then you
Mhm.
get down south, you get superpowers, Charleston and Wilmington. That's like fighting the evil empire. I mean, so it's not and yeah, the one thing I have great respect for the amount of guys that have been through this league is a lot of guys play different styles and really, really good tacticians and preparation guys. Like, it's not easy going to a Drexel or a Monmouth or a Stony Brook, and then same thing, you go see something totally different out of William and Mary or an Elon. And it's good coaches.
Mhm. And a lot of different styles of basketball, like you mentioned. And one guy I've always admired is Earl Grant. He was here at BC for some time
Sure.
and obviously had a lot of success at Charleston. Like you just mentioned, like Charleston always played a different style of basketball than Northeastern did, just like the Towson did, right? And that's what I think makes the CAA so special is that when you do get to conference play and you get to December when the CAA battles are going on in December and January and February, anything could happen, which is the beauty of the conference. And I do want to mention we already did talk about you as a leader as a coach. In 2023, you were the Skip Prosser Man of the Year award winner. How much of
They
an honor
couldn't
was
they
that?
couldn't they couldn't get anyone else to that was it. Look at College Insider people are great people. I'm nowhere near Skip Prosser, but I'm appreciative of the recognition. We've been fortunate. Tom Herrion, who was a great coach, and I, with the help of Autism Speaks and the NABC, were able to raise some awareness to the single largest developmental disorder in the U.S. And some coaches have been very supportive and wearing the pins and um, but that's it. We just used our platform and had a creative idea. It's like anything else. We got to figure out how to make it better. We haven't been able to figure that out
Mhm.
after that. The real issue is um, how do you continue to bring awareness and then raise funds to help people that maybe don't have the means in order to get the services that they need for their kids at a young age, you know?
Mhm. And you've done a terrific job at that, bringing autism awareness to the game and with Autism Speaks, like you said, and Tom Herrion, and you were recognized by the NABC. You were the Guardians of the Game Service Award winners in the last few years, which is really special. How much has it meant to you seeing hundreds of coaches across the country wearing those blue pins over the last few years?
No, that's been cool. Like you see, like you see the national champs Dan Hurley and his staff wearing them. That's been cool. And then remember the first year we did it was college game day was at the ACC Syracuse Duke and to see Coach K and Boeheim. So that piece is cool. I like during that weekend we have some real rock stars in our profession. It's been cool that a lot of them have supported that. But a lot of times coaches get a bad rap. Most of these guys, if you ask them to do something and why they go, John Calipari. I mean, these guys go over and above. I think supporting a lot, not just the autism platform, but a lot of great causes.
Mhm. And it shows how much respect those guys have for you and Tom Herrion when you start out with this idea, obviously bringing that autism awareness to the game, and it really grows into something where coaches are finding out probably they might have coached with you over the years. Same thing with Tom as well. And then it kind of just grows from there and it branches out. But it all starts with you two and the great work you've done. So obviously a lot to be proud of there. And obviously a huge accomplishment being that award winner there. It's a great honor. I do have one more question for you before I ask you about Medford. I have one question about Medford before the end, but I wanted to ask you about the new arena, which now it's been built now for about the last 10 to 12 years. I think in 2013, the SECU Arena was built. When that arena was built, obviously, like you mentioned, it was your early time, at Towson, and then you really developed it to a place that was really tough to play. And I'm looking at some streaks here. You had an 18-game win streak between December of 2022 through February 2024, and then a 16-game win streak between December of 24 through this past January in 2026. What makes the SECU Arena special, a special place to play?
Yeah, those are good stats. I wasn't even aware of that. Appreciate you bringing that up. I really would give a lot of credit to my athletic director in the last handful of years, Steve Eigenbrot. Our student turnout has just grown tremendously. So it's created a difficult home court advantage for us, for the opposing team rather. And that's really important to be able to get your students out and people in the community. We continue through Steve's support, trying to get more home games. Obviously, unlike any coach, the more home games we could have, the better. But the energy in the building, the students, and it does make a difference. It's so we got to try to continue to do that and do it even better. I thought there was a couple times last year I told that to our guys, we didn't we didn't perform as well as the crowd did. So like that's not good. We've got to give them a product that's worth coming out and consistently supporting, and then some.
Mhm. And you've built that environment there, like you said, getting the students there, and then winning's important as well. I feel like if you're losing games, right, and if you're struggling, and especially late in a season, it can be tough to get people to go. But you guys have been, like I noted, consistently competitive over the last 5 years, right? 20 plus win seasons in four of the last five, and then in that one year that you didn't get 20, you had 19. So you're right there with another great season. So winning, I think, does build that environment, and also, like you said, getting those people out there, giving them a product that is fun to watch. And I'm from the outside looking in. I haven't been to the SECU Arena before, but hopefully this coming season I'll make that happen. But when I do watch those games, I can tell the environment is electric there, and that's obviously a testament to everything you've done there. What are your expectations heading into this season for Towson? You're coming off another great season where you're competitive in the CAA. What are your thoughts on this upcoming?
Yeah, boy. I mean, like it's can we have a really good summer? Kind of tweak a couple things that I thought we weren't up to speed at. Offensively, we spent some time on this spring, and as we're doing that, continue to get guys games and their bodies better so that their confidence grows and their bodies change, because that's important to us. And then we'll try to get our defense in. It won't be very good, but it's a staple of what we do. So just having a productive summer, and then this day and age, you got to coach chemistry every day, and I always say you got to make the sauce taste great. You get a lot of different ingredients. So yeah, just go back to winter's going to ask at some point, what do we do all summer? So it's got to be, we're about to start up 8 weeks, and the more really good days we can have, the greater the likelihood that we'll have some success next year, and what will be a daunting CAA race.
Mhm. I love that viewpoint on it. Like you already mentioned already, and I pointed out that the winter's going to be looking back and see what you did in the summer. Like I said, people look at it the reverse way, just in life. What'd you do over the winter to be stronger for the summer? But obviously, college basketball winter, that the main season right there is January, February, March, when CAA playoffs come around and stuff. That's when you got to be playing your best ball. So wishing you guys all the best this year. And now I do want to ask you my final question. Obviously, being a Medford native. And you were talking about sauce just a second ago, so I'm sure you know some great restaurants in the area. What's your favorite restaurant, maybe two restaurants in the Medford, Boston area?
Well, I'll stay right on Medford. One, Bob's Sub Shop on Main Street in Medford. I'll tell you, either you get the jumbo steak tip with sauce, cheese, and mayo, or you get the deluxe Italian. Okay, it's got the prosciutto. It's off the charts. No place like Bob's. Okay, no place. And then I'd be, the other ones are, we stole the originals in Medford, but over in Medford now on Wellington Circle, we've added a Pizzeria Regina and a Kelly's roast beef. I mean, you can't, Pizzeria Regina opened up in the North End years ago. It's world class pizza. Kelly's roast beef up, on Revere Beach Parkway. It used to be, when I was in high school, it used to be open at 3 a.m. It'd be Friday nights at the fight. You'd go up there and watch people fight at 1:32 in the morning as you're having a roast beef and a soda, maybe some onion rings. So now that we have those in Medford, it's incredible.
Mhm. And they're right next to each other too, which in
That's
that
right.
email that I
That's
sent
right.
you, in the email I sent you about, trying to get a podcast episode with you, I mentioned Medford because I spent a lot of time there growing up. My family and I always celebrated birthdays and anniversaries and stuff like that at the Pizzeria Regina. So spent a lot of time in that area, beautiful area in Medford. I do have to check out Bob's. Never been there, but I'll
Oh,
take your word
please
for it.
do. Yeah,
I'll take
and
your word.
listen, it's maybe you go to chicken parm, but I'm telling you, the deluxe Italian or the steak tip, the jumbo steak tip, you have to get eat one of those two.
All right. Sounds good. I'll definitely do so. And wishing you all the best this year, Pat. Thank you so much for your time. It truly was an honor as somebody that has admired you for years in your coaching style and watching your team play. It truly is a privilege to have you on today. So thank you for your time. And hopefully I'll be at SECU Arena next year. I'd love to see a game in person since obviously you guys won't be traveling this way, sadly. Hopefully I'll be able to make the trip up to Maryland to see you guys play. It'd be great.
Well, thanks for having me. You have an open invitation if you can come down this way.
Thank you so much, Coach. Take care and have a great summer.